The morning sun cast long shadows across the rocky terrain of the Afghanistan mountains, as Staff Sergeant Maria Santos adjusted her position on the ridge overlooking the valley below. Her M110 sniper rifle rested steady against the natural rock formation, its scope trained on the small village where her team had been conducting surveillance for the past 3 days. The intelligence reports indicated a high-value target was hiding in one of the mud brick compounds, but so far, the village had remained eerily quiet. Below her, approximately 800 meters down the slope, a 6-man SEAL team, led by Lieutenant Commander Jake Morrison, was preparing to move into the settlement. The team had been tracking a Taliban commander responsible for coordinating attacks on coalition forces throughout the region. After weeks of planning, they finally had a solid lead on his location. Maria wiped the sweat from her brow, despite the cool morning air. Born and raised in East Los Angeles, she had never imagined she would find herself perched on a mountainside in Afghanistan, serving as the Overwatch sniper for some of the military's most elite operators. Her journey to this moment had been unconventional. She had started as a regular Army soldier before proving her exceptional marksmanship skills and earning a spot in specialized sniper training. Through her earpiece, she heard Morrison's voice crackling with static. "Overwatch, this is ground team. We're beginning our approach to the target compound. Maintain eyes on our 6 and report any movement." "Copy that, ground team," Maria responded, her voice calm and professional. "I have clear sightlines on your route and the surrounding area. No movement detected at this time." The SEAL team moved with practiced precision through the terraced fields that led to the village. Each man was a veteran of multiple deployments, their movements synchronized like a well-rehearsed dance. Morrison took point, followed by Petty Officer Second Class Rodriguez, the team's explosives expert. Behind him, Hospital Corpsman Williams carried additional medical supplies, knowing that casualties were always a possibility in these operations. As the team approached the outskirts of the village, Maria noticed something that made her pulse quicken. Through her scope, she spotted a glint of metal from a rooftop approximately 200 meters to the east of the SEAL team's position. She adjusted her focus and saw what appeared to be the barrel of an AK-47 rifle partially concealed behind a low wall. "Ground team, be advised," she transmitted. "I've got possible hostile movement on the rooftop at your 2 o'clock. Approximately 200 meters out." Morrison's team immediately took cover behind a stone wall that bordered one of the fields. "Can you confirm hostile intent?" Morrison asked. Maria kept her scope trained on the suspicious position, waiting for definitive proof. Military rules of engagement required positive identification of hostile intent before engaging. After several tense minutes, she saw the figure shift position, revealing more of the weapon and what appeared to be additional personnel moving on the same rooftop. "Ground team, I count at least 3 individuals with weapons on that rooftop. They appear to be setting up firing positions overlooking your approach route." The situation was rapidly becoming more complicated than anyone had anticipated. The intelligence briefing had suggested minimal enemy presence in the village, but it was becoming clear that the Taliban commander had prepared for the possibility of coalition forces attempting to capture him. Morrison made a quick tactical decision. "We're going to continue with the mission. The target is too valuable to abort now. Overwatch. Keep those rooftop positions under observation, and be prepared to engage if they open fire on us." As the SEAL team resumed their advance, Maria noticed additional movement throughout the village. Windows that had been empty moments before now showed shadows moving behind them. What had initially appeared to be a simple capture mission was transforming into something much more dangerous. The team reached the target compound without incident, but as they prepared to breach the main entrance, the situation exploded into chaos. The crack of rifle fire echoed across the valley as the hidden gunmen opened fire from multiple positions throughout the village. The carefully planned operation had become a desperate fight for survival. Morrison's voice came through the radio with urgent intensity. "Taking fire from multiple positions. We're pinned down at the compound entrance." Through her scope, Maria could see muzzle flashes erupting from windows, rooftops, and doorways throughout the settlement. The enemy had turned the entire village into an elaborate ambush, and her teammates were caught in the middle of it with limited cover. "I count at least 15 to 20 enemy fighters," she reported, her training keeping her voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her system. "They've got you surrounded on 3 sides. The sound of gunfire intensified as the SEAL team fought to establish defensive positions. They had managed to take cover behind a low wall near the compound, but their situation was becoming increasingly desperate as more enemy fighters joined the battle. Maria began acquiring targets through her scope, but the range and angles made immediate engagement difficult. She needed to wait for clear shots that wouldn't risk hitting her own team members in the chaotic firefight below. Overwatch. We need immediate support, Morrison called out between bursts of return fire. We're heavily outnumbered and taking fire from all directions. The battle for the village had begun, and Maria knew that the next few minutes would determine whether her teammates would make it home alive. Her finger moved to the trigger of her rifle as she prepared to engage the enemy fighters who had turned what should have been a routine mission into a fight for survival. Maria took a deep breath and steadied herself behind her rifle. The chaos below required her complete focus and precision. Every shot had to count, and there was no room for error when her teammates' lives hung in the balance. Through her scope, she identified her first target: a gunman on the rooftop who was firing down at Morrison's position. The angle was challenging, but she had trained for exactly these kinds of shots. Maria calculated the wind speed, adjusted for the downward trajectory, and gently squeezed the trigger. The .308 caliber bullet traveled the distance in less than a second. Through her scope, she watched the enemy fighter drop his weapon and collapse behind the low wall. One down, she whispered to herself, already scanning for her next target. Nice shot, Overwatch, came Rodriguez's voice through the radio. Keep it coming. The enemy fighters hadn't yet realized where the sniper fire was coming from, which gave Maria a crucial advantage. She spotted two more gunmen in a second-story window of a building to the north of the SEAL team's position. They were taking turns firing around the window frame, using the solid walls for protection between shots. Maria waited patiently for one of them to expose himself. Patience was perhaps the most important skill a sniper could possess. After 30 seconds that felt like an hour, one of the fighters leaned out to take aim at the pinned-down SEAL team. Her second shot was even more precise than the first. The bullet struck the target's center mass, and he fell back into the room. His partner immediately moved to the same window to continue firing, apparently unaware of what had just happened to his comrade. That's what we call target fixation, Maria muttered, as she lined up her third shot. The second gunman fell moments later. From her elevated position, Maria could see enemy fighters moving between buildings, trying to flank the SEAL team's position. She realized that simply picking off individual targets wouldn't be enough. She needed to disrupt their coordinated attack and create an opportunity for her team to either complete the mission or extract safely. She identified what appeared to be a leader among the enemy fighters, a man who was gesturing and directing other gunmen from a covered position behind a stone wall. Taking out leadership targets could often cause confusion and break up coordinated attacks. The shot required her to thread the bullet through a narrow gap between two buildings. Maria adjusted her breathing, lined up the crosshairs, and fired. The enemy leader dropped immediately, and she could see the confusion that followed as the other fighters looked around uncertainly. Overwatch, you're doing excellent work up there, Morrison's voice crackled through her earpiece. But we've got more fighters moving in from the east. Looks like at least 10 more hostiles approaching our position. Maria swiveled her rifle toward the eastern approach and saw exactly what Morrison was describing. A group of armed men was moving through the olive groves that bordered the village, clearly intending to surround the SEAL team completely. This presented a different kind of challenge. The fighters were spread out over a wider area and moving quickly between cover. Maria would need to engage multiple targets rapidly to prevent them from reaching positions where they could effectively pin down her teammates. She acquired her first target among the approaching fighters, a man carrying what appeared to be a rocket-propelled grenade launcher. RPGs posed the greatest immediate threat to the SEAL team, as they could destroy the limited cover the team had found. The distance was greater than her previous shots, nearly 600 meters, but well within the capability of her rifle and her own skills. She led the target slightly to account for his movement, and fired. The man with the RPG dropped, and the weapon skittered across the ground away from the other fighters. Without hesitation, Maria worked the bolt of her rifle and acquired her next target. A fighter who had been advancing quickly from tree to tree suddenly found himself exposed in open ground. Maria's shot dropped him before he could reach his next piece of cover. The remaining fighters in the group began to realize they were being engaged by a sniper, but they couldn't determine her location. Some took cover and tried to spot her position, while others continued advancing toward the village. Maria methodically engaged each target as opportunities presented themselves. Her training had taught her to remain calm under pressure, to control her breathing, and to make every shot deliberate and precise. The intensive practice on shooting ranges across multiple continents was now paying dividends in this life-or-death situation. "Overwatch has eliminated the Eastern approach threat," she reported to Morrison. "Count 7 enemy down in that sector." "Outstanding work," Morrison replied. "We're preparing to assault the target building. Can you provide cover during our approach?" Maria scanned the village through her scope, identifying remaining threats that could interfere with the team's mission. She spotted muzzle flashes from 3 different buildings, and what appeared to be at least 2 more fighters repositioning on rooftops. "I've got eyes on multiple remaining hostiles," she transmitted. "Give me 30 seconds to clear your path." The next several minutes showcased the deadly precision that had made Maria one of the military's most respected snipers. She systematically eliminated threats with calculated shots, each one carefully planned to maximize the safety of her teammates below. A fighter attempting to set up a machine gun position on a rooftop was her next target. The heavy weapon would have been devastating against the lightly protected SEAL team. Maria's bullet struck him as he was adjusting the weapon's tripod, sending both the gunman and the machine gun tumbling from the roof. 2 more fighters had taken position in a doorway where they could fire on the SEAL team's planned route to the target building. Maria waited until both men were visible in the doorway frame before taking her shot. The angle allowed her to neutralize both threats with a single, well-placed round. As Morrison's team began their final assault on the compound where the Taliban commander was hiding, Maria continued to provide overwatch, scanning constantly for any remaining threats that might emerge from the now quiet village. Her precise shooting had eliminated nearly 20 enemy fighters and completely disrupted what had been a well-planned ambush. The SEAL team was now free to complete their mission, thanks to the deadly accuracy of the lone sniper watching over them from the ridgeline above. The compound fell silent, except for the distant echo of Maria's final shot, reverberating across the mountains. Through her scope, she watched Morrison's team breach the target building with swift, practiced movements. The explosive charge Rodriguez had placed on the door created a perfect entry point, and the team flowed into the structure like water finding its path. "Building secure," Morrison's voice came through the radio minutes later. "Target acquired. Package is in custody." Maria allowed herself a moment of satisfaction, but kept her rifle ready and continued scanning the surrounding area. Even with the immediate threat eliminated, there was always the possibility of additional enemy fighters approaching the area. "Overwatch, this is ground team," Morrison continued. "We're preparing for extraction. Can you confirm the area remains clear?" "Ever this. One the by. Ever the by." Through her scope, Maria conducted a systematic sweep of the village and surrounding terrain. The bodies of the enemy fighters she had engaged lay scattered throughout the settlement, a grim testament to the precision of her marksmanship. She counted at least 18 confirmed eliminations, though the total number of enemy casualties was likely higher when including those engaged by the SEAL team during the firefight. "Area appears secure," she reported. "I count multiple enemy KIA throughout the village. No movement detected in surrounding areas." The extraction helicopter was already en route, having been called in once the situation had escalated beyond the original mission parameters. Maria could hear the distant sound of rotor blades approaching from the south, growing louder with each passing minute. As the SEAL team prepared the captured Taliban commander for transport, Maria began her own preparation for extraction from her sniper position. She carefully cleaned her rifle barrel and secured her equipment, following the same methodical procedures she had learned during her training. Even in combat situations, proper weapon maintenance was crucial for future missions. The helicopter touched down in a clear area outside the village, its rotors kicking up clouds of dust and debris. Morrison's team quickly moved toward the aircraft with their prisoner, maintaining security formation even during the final moments of the operation. "Overwatch, time to move," Morrison transmitted. "We'll pick you up at your secondary extraction point." Maria had already identified an alternative location for pickup during her initial reconnaissance of the area. The secondary site was approximately 400 meters from her current position, requiring her to carefully navigate down the steep mountainside while carrying her equipment. As she made her way toward the extraction point, Maria reflected on the events of the past few hours. The mission had gone from routine surveillance to intense combat in a matter of minutes, demonstrating how quickly situations could change in a combat zone. When she reached the pickup location, the helicopter was already waiting with its engines running. The SEAL team had efficiently processed the capture and were ready to return to base. Maria climbed aboard and secured her equipment as the aircraft lifted off from the valley floor. During the flight back to their forward operating base, Morrison moved through the helicopter to speak with Maria personally. Even over the noise of the rotors, his message was clear. "That was some of the finest shooting I've seen in 15 years of combat operations. You saved our lives today." Rodriguez and the other team members nodded their agreement. What could have been a disaster had been turned into a successful mission through Maria's precise marksmanship and tactical thinking. "Just doing my job," Maria replied, though she knew the importance of what had happened. The captured Taliban commander possessed intelligence that could prevent future attacks and potentially save countless lives. Back at the base, the team went through the standard post-mission procedures. Maria cleaned and inspected her rifle thoroughly, documenting the number of rounds fired and the condition of her equipment. The M110 had performed flawlessly during the engagement, confirming her confidence in the weapon system. The mission debrief revealed the full scope of what had occurred in the village. Intelligence analysts determined that the enemy had been expecting coalition forces and had prepared an elaborate ambush using local fighters and foreign Taliban members. The quick thinking and precision shooting had prevented what could have been a significant loss of American personnel. Colonel Martinez, the base commander, personally commended Maria for her actions during the operation. Staff Sergeant Santos, "Your performance today exemplifies the highest standards of military excellence. You neutralized approximately 20 enemy fighters while protecting a 6-man SEAL team under intense fire." The captured Taliban commander provided valuable intelligence during interrogation, leading to the identification of several terrorist cells operating in the region. The success of the mission had far-reaching implications beyond the immediate tactical victory. Several weeks later, Maria received official recognition for her actions during the operation. The Silver Star Medal recognized her gallantry in action against an armed enemy, acknowledging how her courage and skill had directly contributed to the mission's success and the safety of her fellow service members. But for Maria, the greatest reward was simpler. Knowing that Morrison, Rodriguez, Williams, and the other SEAL team members had returned safely to their families. In the complex world of military operations, success was often measured not just in objectives accomplished, but in people brought home. The village where the battle had taken place was later secured by coalition forces and turned into an outpost that helped stabilize the entire region. The elimination of the Taliban commander and his network significantly reduced insurgent activity in the area, making life safer for local civilians who had been caught between opposing forces. Maria continued her deployment, participating in several more operations before eventually returning to the United States. The events of that morning in the Afghan mountains had demonstrated the critical importance of precision marksmanship in modern military operations, and her actions became part of the training curriculum for future military snipers. Years later, when Maria looked back on her military service, the mission in the village stood out as a defining moment. It had tested every aspect of her training and experience, requiring not just technical skill, but also the mental fortitude to perform under extreme pressure, when lives depended on her accuracy. The bond forged between Maria and Morrison's SEAL team during those intense hours endured long after their military service ended, a reminder that in combat, success often depends on the courage and competence of individual soldiers willing to risk everything for their fellow service members.